I'll tell you what, if this doesn't wake the Eagles up, nothing will. 18th pick in the NFL draft.
Hey, make us lunch. We're hungry.
Dallas still stinks. Yo, everybody ain't doing? King Ding back here, I'm getting real sick and tired of this locker room drama, of all this crap that keeps coming out. Really, I just want to focus on football. I want it to be, the Eagles win, we got a chance. If we lose, we're done. That's the way I want it, because all this other stuff going on drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. But I have no choice but to come on and give you my opinion on what I just heard from Orlando Scandrick. Now, for those that don't know, Orlando Scandrick went on Undisputed, and he basically trashed the Eagles. He trashed the Eagles. I'm going to put a link to the video in the description box so you can check it out yourselves if you haven't. But I'm sure most of you guys have heard. Now, let's get this out of the way first of all. Is Orlando Scandrick bitter and pissed off he got cut? Yeah, most likely. He sounds bitter. Did he feel like the scapegoat? Yes, he did. He said it multiple times. Did he have motivation or maybe just want to get revenge for the Eagles for, everything happening? Maybe, possibly, quite possible. Did he say exactly the opposite things Sunday after they lost to Dallas? Yes, he did. So we have to throw that out there. Now, I know when you work for a team and an organization, you're going to say certain things that you wouldn't say if you're really being honest and telling what's in your heart. So I'm assuming a lot of what he said is in his heart. At least he thinks he's right in certain aspects of it. There were some aspects of his interview that I thought didn't make a lot of sense, mainly going after specific guys that we'll get into in a minute. But I think he had motivation. He was bitter. He was frustrated. All those kind of things. It's possible. I do not think he was the leak because he was man enough to go and put his face to what he had to say. So I don't think that the guy who leaked it would do that. He went and did it. I don't think he was the leaker. But I think the main message of what Orlando Scandrick said about the Eagles, I think is accurate. I think it's accurate. I've been complaining for weeks that these players don't help each other up, that they don't play with a lot of heart. There's only a handful of guys that I'm like, man, he's making a full effort to win. He looks hungry. A lot of these guys don't. Now, many people misinterpret this as the Eagles hate Carson Wentz, so they don't block for him or they don't do this. And I've said all along, it's not that. They're not motivated. They're not hungry. They're just going through the motion there for a paycheck. They won a Super Bowl. And what Orlando Scandrick was basically saying was, this is a team that is still living in 2017. They still act like they won the Super Bowl. They're not, hungry dogs run fast. Full dogs, they take a nap. And that's what the Eagles are. They're older. They got full bellies. And they're tired and they just want to take a nap and they're just going through the motions. That's how they play on the field. When I watch them, that's what they look like. Except for Carson Wentz, Brandon Graham, and a few handful of other guys. But a lot of these guys, they look like they're still playing. They're still shining their rings. You know what I mean? They look like they just feel like they just won the Super Bowl. That's how they act. So when he says what he says, I think he's right. I think in that aspect, that is a fair assertion, and it's what we've suspected, what we've been talking about on this channel for the last few weeks, that they look like they won and they're happy with what they had, except for a few guys. And I think there's a lot of truth in what he's saying. I do. And I think that's fair. I think it's fair to say that this team does not look hungry. And I tell you, I watched 2017 games, and one of the things I notice is that those players help each other up. They're down the field, they run hard every play. Nobody takes a play off. They look like, hey, we won a Super Bowl and we're okay, and we'll be able to turn it on when we want to, and that's not how it works, okay? And I think a big mistake the Eagles made last year was keeping so many guys that were on that championship team. I mean, if you listen to guys like Bill Belichick or even look at the old Yankee teams, it always seems like there's a certain amount of turnover when you win a championship because you got to get hungry guys in, guys that want to win. I remember the Yankees, it always seemed like they always found that one star player that hadn't won a World Series and yet, and they would bring him in and he would help them go win, like Roger Clemens or whoever it was. And Belichick does this all the time. He cuts like 20, 25, 30% of his roster, and then he brings in guys that are hungry. And the Eagles, I think, have made a fundamental mistake by keeping so many guys that were on that Super Bowl team, because I think they're going through the motions, Now, he trashed Howie Roseman. He said Howie Roseman was a liar. He wouldn't trust him. If Howie said he was going to rain outside, he'd wear shorts because he doesn't trust him that much. To me, I think it just sounds like, he's got bitterness towards Howie Roseman. I don't put a lot of stock in it. He called Malcolm Jenkins selfish. He said Malcolm Jenkins is a selfish player. Basically not a good leader is what he's saying. I've never heard that. I've never heard that Malcolm Jenkins is a bad leader and is a selfish player. I don't view him as that. And yes, there was the play with Rasul Douglas where Rasul Douglas took a lot of heat and maybe Malcolm could have said, hey, it's on me, it's on me. And I think he did at some point, but Scandrick blasted him for that, okay? So I don't agree with that assertion. And then the whole Carson Wentz thing is basically he thought he likes Carson Wentz. He thinks he's stand up. He has no problems with him. But he made a comment that made it sound like Carson doesn't show up on every and is not the first guy in and the last guy to leave, and he only wants to do more when they're struggling. Which every account that we've ever heard of Carson Wentz, even those in the Folesian Society, will tell you that the one thing you can't take away from Carson Wentz is his work ethic. He's always the first in the building. He's always the last to leave. This has been confirmed countless times. So where he's coming up with this, I think that's more of just him making a guess. Because one of the things he also said is he talked about how Carson and the receivers, they didn't want to work on catching balls until they had a lot of drops. Well, we all know that started week 2. They started working extra week 2 after all the drops. Scandrick was not back on the Eagles until after the Green Bay game. So for those weeks where they were putting the extra time in after practice throwing balls, he wasn't even on the team. He wasn't even there. So what's he talking about? It doesn't make sense. I mean, the one thing you can't question, you could say Carson Hobart is Foles' team and all that stuff, but you can't question the guy's work ethic. That's, I think, where he's wrong. The Malcolm Jenkins things I don't agree with him with, and the Howie Roseman thing is, look, I just think that's just personal opinion. I'm sure there are guys on that team that love Howie Roseman, so I don't get too much into it. And Malcolm has already come out and has basically said we don't need this MFer, we don't need MFers like that in this locker room, which I agree. Jalen Mills has already stood up for Malcolm, and I think many of the other players will. And he talked about how some of these guys, maybe they're not over Foles being there and winning a Super Bowl with him, and they got to get over it because he's not coming back. I think there's truth to that too. I think there's a lot of truth by a guy who's bitter, by a guy who has a gripe with the team, so he's airing dirty laundry. I think that's basically what's going on. And it's not surprising because of the way they play. I mean, these are things that I talk about. What the hell is that? The other thing he talked about, and I really agreed with, I got to say this too, is he said Nelson Aguilar is maybe the worst receiver he's ever seen. I completely agree. Oh, he didn't say that. I'm sorry. I said that. But he should have. If you're going to say anything, say that. I can agree with that. You know what I mean? But no, I mean, seriously, this team does act like they still won the Super Bowl. There is no urgency. You see it on the field. You see the play. And it's just been the way it is. Now, here's what I'll say. This could be the catalyst. This could be the driving force which brings that team back together, which brings that locker room back together. Because to have somebody from inside go out and then do that has a way of not destroying a team, but bringing it together. So this is going to go one of two ways, because if they go to Buffalo and they stink it up and they play exactly the way they've been playing the last few weeks, it's done. They're done. Put a fork in them. They're done. If they rally around each other because of this crap and they go in and they get a win, watch out. Watch out, because they may have just woke a sleeping giant in the NFC East. And that's what we've all been waiting for. But that's basically what's been going on with this Scandrick thing. Those are my thoughts on it. There's a lot more he said. I'm sure I didn't cover, but you know, the basis of it is that this team is full. They're fed, and they don't have the same hunger and motivation as other teams around the league do. They still act like they won a Super Bowl, and they got to get over it. That's basically what it said, and for the most part, I agree. And I hope they'll do it starting Sunday versus the Bills. My prediction video will be out later tonight or this evening, maybe tomorrow morning at the latest. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Let me know what you think about this whole crazy situation. With that said, take care. Talk to you later. And don't be a dingbat.